The stars looked different here at the edge of known space where Commander Lisa Martinez stood on the bridge of her ship, watching the alien station grow larger on the main screen. Her fleet of 12 ships had traveled for months to reach this distant corner of the galaxy, following strange signals that suggested intelligent life. The signals had been beautiful and complex, with patterns that no human computer could fully understand, but they clearly came from advanced beings who knew things about space travel that humans were still learning. Lisa adjusted her uniform and checked the status reports from her other ships. Captain Kate Sullivan commanded the tactical group while Dr. Amy Rodriguez led the science vessels. Each ship carried the best crew that Earth could provide, along with supplies for a long mission into unknown territory. They had come here not to fight, but to learn, and perhaps make the first real contact between humans and other intelligent species. The alien monitoring station was enormous compared to human constructions, with flowing organic curves that seemed to grow rather than be built. Crystalline structures jutted from biometallic hulls, while energy fields shimmered around docking bays that could hold ships 10 times larger than anything humans had ever made. Strange lights pulsed along the station walls in patterns that might have been communication or decoration or something humans had no words for yet. Zarathiel Moonwhisper stood in the command center of the Elven section, watching the approaching human vessels with ancient eyes that had seen civilizations rise and fall across centuries of life. Her pointed ears twitched with annoyance as she studied the primitive ships with their crude fusion drives and basic metal hulls. The humans used kinetic weapons and simple energy shields that any decent military academy student could defeat with standard tactics from 1,000 years ago. The Elven admiral had silver hair that flowed like starlight and wore robes that shifted, color with her emotions showing deep purple for the contempt she felt toward these newcomers. Her people had mastered the songs that controlled matter at the molecular level, turning technology into art that could reshape reality itself. These humans, with their noisy engines and clumsy movements, were like children playing with sticks, while adults wielded plasma swords. Crystal Song of Depths resonated with harmonics that conveyed similar disdain through the crystalline matrix that formed her body. The Zephyrian being existed as living mineral that could manipulate energy fields through thought alone, creating matter from pure force and bending space around her will. She communicated through frequency patterns that made the station walls vibrate with musical tones, expressing her agreement with the Elven assessment of human primitiveness. The humans broadcast simple radio signals, asking for permission to approach and requesting peaceful contact. Their messages were crude and limited compared to the sophisticated quantum-entangled communications that advanced species used, but at least they seemed to understand basic diplomatic protocol, even if they executed it with all the grace of falling rocks. Lisa Martinez received the response through standard channels after the aliens decided to acknowledge the human presence. The message came in broken human language, clearly translated by computers that found human speech patterns difficult to process. The aliens granted permission for a single human ship to approach the station, while the rest maintained distance and made no threatening moves. Dr. Amy Rodriguez joined Lisa on the bridge, carrying data tablets filled with everything humans had learned about galactic civilization from intercepted signals over the past 50 years. The information was incomplete and often confusing, since humans lacked the cultural context to understand what they were observing. But it suggested a vast network of species that had been spacefaring for thousands of years, while humans had barely left their home system. Kate Sullivan monitored the tactical situation from her position, noting how the alien ships moved with impossible grace and speed. Their vessels seemed to ignore basic physics, as humans understood it, bending space around them rather than pushing through it like human ships that relied on brute force and clever engineering to achieve what aliens accomplished through advanced science that might as well be magic. The alien station grew larger until it filled the entire view screen, revealing details that made human engineers weep with envy. Living metal flowed like water to form new structures, while crystal gardens grew in vacuum using energy fields to create matter from nothing. Organic components pulsed with their own life, integrating so seamlessly with technology that no clear line existed between what was built and what was grown. Zarathiel watched the human approach with the patience of someone who had observed countless primitive species attempt to join galactic civilization. Most failed within decades, proving unable to adapt to the complexity and demands of advanced society. Those that survived usually became client species, serving their betters in exchange for protection and technology they could never develop themselves. The Elven Admiral sent commands through biofrequency links that responded to her thoughts, directing subordinate ships to form an escort formation around the human vessel. Her people moved with fluid precision that came from centuries of practice and genetic modifications that enhanced their natural grace into something approaching perfection. Crystal's Song of Depths extended sensory fields to examine the human ship, in detail finding primitive fusion reactors that burned matter inefficiently compared to zero-point energy extraction that civilized species used. The human weapons were simple kinetic projectiles and basic energy beams that could barely scratch modern defensive systems designed to withstand antimatter bombardment and exotic particle streams. Lisa Martinez felt the weight of history as her ship approached the alien station, knowing that humanity stood at a crossroads that would determine their future among the stars. The aliens clearly possessed technology and knowledge that could transform human civilization, but they also radiated an attitude of superiority that suggested they viewed humans as little more than amusing barbarians who had learned to bang rocks together in space. The alien station docking bay opened with a sound like singing crystals as Lisa Martinez and her diplomatic team stepped through the airlock into an environment that challenged every assumption they had about space habitats. The artificial gravity felt different from the rotation-based systems humans used, with a smoothness that suggested direct manipulation of gravitational fields rather than mechanical spinning. The air itself seemed alive, carrying microscopic particles that glowed softly and moved in patterns too complex to be random atmospheric circulation. Dr. Amy Rodriguez carried her translation devices and cultural analysis equipment while trying not to stare at the impossible architecture surrounding them. Walls curved in directions that hurt to look at directly, while floors became ceilings without any visible transition points. Living vines grew along crystalline supports, pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that might have been decorative or functional, or both at the same time. Commander Beth Parker led the security detail, though her weapons remained holstered in accordance with diplomatic protocol. The human Marines wore their best dress uniforms, but looked painfully crude compared to the elegance flowing around them. Their equipment was functional metal and polymer, while everything alien seemed to exist in a state of artistic perfection that made even simple doorways look like sculptures worthy of museums. Zarathiel Moonwhisper approached the human delegation with movements that combined the grace of flowing water with the precision of mathematical equations. Her escort included other elven officers whose beauty was so perfect it seemed almost artificial, though their pointed ears and ethereal features clearly marked them as a different species entirely. The elven admiral wore robes that shifted through spectrum colors, responding to subtle biometric changes in ways that human technology could not duplicate. Crystal's Song of Depths manifested nearby as a living statue of translucent mineral that refracted light into rainbow patterns across the surrounding walls. The Zephyrian being communicated through harmonic frequencies that made the station structure itself vibrate with musical tones, creating a symphony of meaning that human ears could barely perceive. Translation devices struggled to convert the complex harmonics into crude human language, losing most of the nuance in the process. The diplomatic meeting took place in a chamber that defied physics, as humans understood it, with a ceiling that showed real-time views of distant galaxies, while the floor displayed cross-sections of planetary cores from worlds scattered across the galaxy. Furniture grew from the floor when needed, then dissolved back into the base material when no longer required. The aliens clearly intended to demonstrate their technological superiority through casual displays of capabilities that would require human civilization decades to achieve. Zarathiel began the formal presentations by activating what she called song magic, though Dr. Amy Rodriguez recognized it as advanced nanotechnology responding to biofrequency commands. The Elven Admiral sang a melody that caused nearby matter to reorganize itself into complex three-dimensional maps showing the extent of elven territory across thousands of star systems. Each note controlled different aspects of the display, adding details about population centers, military installations, and resource extraction operations. The demonstration continued as Crystal Song of Depths showed Zephyrian capabilities by manipulating energy fields to create temporary matter constructs that existed for minutes before dissolving back into component particles. The crystalline being formed entire spacecraft from pure energy, complete with functional systems and artificial intelligence, that operated independently until their creator chose to unmake them. The message was clear that these aliens possessed godlike powers compared to human technology. Lisa Martinez listened to the presentations while maintaining diplomatic composure, despite feeling increasingly overwhelmed by the scope of what she was learning. The Galactic Council controlled over 10,000 star systems with member species that had been spacefaring for millennia before humans discovered agriculture. Their technology included faster-than-light travel that could cross the galaxy in days-matter conversion, that eliminated scarcity, and artificial intelligence systems that managed planetary civilizations without conscious oversight. The aliens offered humanity two choices with the casual arrogance of adults addressing children who had wandered into adult conversations. Humans could accept protected species status, which would grant them reservation worlds and basic technology in exchange for acknowledging alien superiority and accepting permanent subordinate status. Alternatively, humans could return to their home system and abandon any claims to galactic territory until they developed sufficient advancement to earn recognition through proper channels. Dr. Amy Rodriguez asked careful questions about the protected species program, discovering that it was essentially slavery disguised as benevolence. Protected species provided labor and resources while receiving minimal technology and no political representation. They lived in artificial environments designed by their protectors and followed cultural guidelines that prevented them from developing independent capabilities that might threaten established power structures. Commander Beth Parker observed the alien guards, noting their casual confidence and complete lack of concern about human military capabilities. The elven soldiers carried weapons that looked like jewelry, but probably contained enough destructive power to level cities, while Zephyrian warriors existed as mobile energy fields that could reshape matter through direct manipulation of fundamental forces. Kate Sullivan monitored communications from the human fleet outside, reporting that alien ships were taking positions around the human vessels in what appeared to be escort formations. The alien vessels moved with impossible precision, executing maneuvers that would crush human crews with gravitational forces, but seemed to cause no problems for their occupants, who probably used inertial dampening technology that humans had only theorized about. Lisa Martinez requested time to consider the alien proposals, though she already knew that neither option was acceptable to human dignity or ambition. The alien response revealed their true attitude toward humanity, as they granted a few hours for humans to accept the inevitable, while making it clear that rejection would result in forced removal from galactic space. The aliens had dealt with countless primitive species before, and expected this encounter to follow the same predictable pattern. Dr. Nina Clark worked frantically in the human ship, analyzing data gathered during the diplomatic meeting and discovering disturbing patterns in alien behavior and technology. The aliens were indeed advanced beyond human capabilities, but their advancement had led to rigid thinking patterns and overdependence on automated systems that responded to standard protocols. They had become so accustomed to dealing with primitive species that they had stopped considering alternatives to their established procedures. The human delegation returned to their ship, carrying recordings and sensor data that would change everything. Humans thought they knew about their place in the galaxy, while the aliens prepared their escort fleet to remove another primitive species that had failed to accept galactic reality. The alien escort fleet positioned itself around the human ships with mechanical precision that reflected thousands of years of standard operating procedures designed to handle primitive species who refused to accept galactic reality. 50 alien vessels formed a perfect sphere around the 12 human ships, while maintaining exactly the distances specified in Galactic Council protocols for the peaceful removal of unwelcome visitors from civilized space. Zarathiel Moonwhisper commanded the operation from her flagship while reviewing the psychological profiles that her analysts had prepared for the human leadership. The Elven Admiral expected typical primitive responses, including desperate bargaining, attempts futile threats, and eventually tearful acceptance of their inferior status. She had overseen hundreds of similar operations and found them tediously predictable, though sometimes amusing in their pathetic displays of false courage. Crystal's Song of Depths coordinated Zephyrian forces through harmonic frequencies that created interference patterns in local space, making it impossible for human sensors to accurately track alien ship movements. The crystalline being considered this a training exercise for her subordinates, who needed practice dealing with species that possessed only basic technology and limited understanding of modern warfare principles. Lisa Martinez stood on her bridge, watching the alien formations complete their deployment, while maintaining calm confidence that surprised her own crew members. The human commander had requested a final diplomatic meeting, which the aliens granted as a formality before beginning the escort operation. Standard protocol allowed primitive species to exhaust their negotiation attempts before force became necessary. The diplomatic channel opened with Zarathiel appearing on the main screen, surrounded by the ethereal beauty of her command center, where living crystals grew in mathematical patterns, while bioluminescent displays showed tactical information about the human fleet. The Elven Admiral wore ceremonial robes that indicated her role as an executor of Galactic Council justice, though she viewed this more as pest control than actual military action. Zarathiel delivered the ultimatum with the bored efficiency of someone reading standard text for the 1,000th time, explaining that humans had exhausted their diplomatic options and must now submit to escort procedures that would remove them from galactic space. Resistance would be considered an act of aggression against the Galactic Council, resulting in the destruction of human vessels and the classification of humanity as a hostile species banned from ever returning to civilized territory. Lisa Martinez listened to the ultimatum while her fingers moved across her command console, activating what appeared to be a standard distress beacon according to alien sensors monitoring human communications. The beacon transmitted on frequencies that humans had used throughout their space exploration efforts, calling for assistance from any human vessels in the area, though the aliens knew that no help could possibly arrive in time to affect the outcome. The alien fleet detected the distress signal and shared amusement at human desperation through their communication networks. Zarathiel made casual comments about primitive species always calling for rescue that would never come, while Crystal's Song of Depths harmonized with frequencies that conveyed contempt for beings who refused to accept their limitations. The distress beacon would accomplish nothing except advertising human weakness to any observers in the area. Unknown to the aliens, the distress beacon contained complex encoding that activated hidden systems throughout the human fleet as captain. Kate Sullivan received authorization codes that had been pre-programmed into every human vessel before leaving Earth. The tactical officer had spent months developing contingency plans based on intelligence analysis of alien behavioral patterns and technology dependencies that Dr. Nina Clark had identified from intercepted communications. The human ships suddenly executed maneuvers that violated every assumption the aliens had made about primitive technology capabilities, as fusion drives revealed hidden performance characteristics that had been carefully concealed during the initial approach. Human vessels accelerated and changed direction with precision that matched alien capabilities, while maintaining formations that demonstrated tactical coordination beyond what basic communication systems should have allowed. Kate Sullivan implemented attack patterns that exploited alien overconfidence and procedural rigidity as human ships split into groups that moved through the escort formation like dancers performing a rehearsed routine. The aliens found themselves reacting to human movements instead of controlling the situation as their automated systems struggled to adjust protocols designed for dealing with predictable primitive responses. Major Rachel Torres launched boarding operations from concealed launch bays that had appeared to be simple cargo holds during alien inspections. Human Marines used kinetic weapons and explosive charges that bypassed energy shields designed to stop sophisticated particle beams and plasma discharges, but vulnerable to simple physical projectiles moving at high velocities. The aliens had not encountered such primitive tactics for centuries, and their defensive systems were not configured to handle them. The elven ships responded with song magic that controlled matter at the molecular level, but found their elegant solutions disrupted by crude human interference that ignored the underlying physics principles. Human boarding parties used electromagnetic pulse grenades that scrambled the biofrequency networks, while chemical explosives damaged crystalline control matrices that had been designed to self-repair against energy weapon damage but could not cope with old-fashioned destruction. Zarathiel watched her perfect formation dissolve into chaos as human tactics proved impossible to counter with standard procedures, while her subordinates requested new orders for situations that had no precedent in military doctrine. The Elven admiral had never encountered an enemy that used inefficient methods more effectively than her people used advanced technology and found herself unable to adapt quickly enough to changing circumstances. Crystal Song of Depths discovered that human unpredictability created resonance patterns that interfered with Zephyrian harmonic control systems as the crystalline beings struggled to maintain coordination among her forces. Human actions generated random interference that made it impossible to achieve the precise frequency synchronization that Zephyrian technology required, while the aliens could not switch to backup systems quickly enough to maintain tactical advantage. Commander Beth Parker led assault teams that targeted alien command centers with simple explosives and kinetic weapons, while avoiding the elaborate energy-based defenses that had been designed to stop modern military technology. The human Marines moved through alien ships like barbarians, sacking a library using crude methods that accomplished their objectives, while defenders waited for attacks that followed civilized warfare conventions. Dr. Nina Clark coordinated electronic warfare operations from the human flagship using virus programs that exploited alien software vulnerabilities created by over-reliance on automated systems. The alien computers expected sophisticated cyber attacks and were unprepared for simple programs that accomplished basic objectives through brute force methods rather than elegant solutions that required advanced understanding of alien programming principles. The tide turned completely as alien ships found themselves disabled by primitive tactics that bypassed their advanced defenses, while human vessels maintained perfect coordination through communication methods that the aliens had dismissed as too crude to pose any threat to modern military operations. The alien fleet drifted helplessly in space as human boarding parties completed their systematic capture of key systems, while Dr. Maria Santos transmitted data that shattered every assumption the aliens had made about human technological capabilities. The human physicist had spent the entire diplomatic meeting scanning alien technology with instruments hidden in her translation devices, discovering that human engineering was not primitive, but rather represented a completely different approach to the same fundamental challenges. Maria Santos explained to the captured alien commanders that human fusion drives were actually more efficient than alien gravity manipulators under specific conditions because humans had focused on practical solutions rather than elegant demonstrations of theoretical knowledge. Human weapons appeared crude because they accomplished their objectives through reliable mechanical principles rather than complex energy manipulations that required constant maintenance and perfect operating conditions. The real revelation came when Admiral Stella Green transmitted authorization codes that activated cloaking systems throughout the region as 200 additional human vessels materialized around the alien monitoring station. The 12 ships that had approached the aliens were never intended to be the entire human fleet, but rather served as scouts and intelligence gatherers, while the main force remained hidden using stealth technology that the aliens had never detected. Commander Janet Miller coordinated the intelligence operation that had been monitoring galactic communications for decades, while human analysts studied alien behavioral patterns and identified weaknesses in their military doctrine. The humans had known about the Galactic Council and its member species long before making official contact, and had used that knowledge to develop strategies specifically designed to counter alien technological advantages. Zarathiel Moonwhisper found herself confined in her own command center, while human Marines disabled her ship systems using methods that her training had never covered. The Elven Admiral struggled to understand how beings she considered primitive. Barbarians had outmaneuvered forces that represented thousands of years of military evolution and technological advancement. Her people had become so accustomed to supremacy that they had forgotten how to fight opponents who refused to follow established patterns. Crystal Song of Depths resonated with harmonics that conveyed confusion and disbelief as the crystalline being attempted to comprehend how human tactics had neutralized capabilities that should have been impossible to counter. The Zephyrian military doctrine was based on the assumption that superior technology guaranteed victory, but humans had proven that tactical flexibility could overcome raw capability when applied with sufficient intelligence and preparation. Moonbeam Silverveil watched the human operations from her position as a junior elven officer while beginning to question everything she had been taught about alien species and galactic hierarchy. The young elf had always accepted the established order without examination, but seeing humans accomplish the impossible forced her to consider that perhaps her people had been wrong about their natural superiority over other forms of life. Lisa Martinez broadcast to all alien vessels explaining that humans had not come to conquer or destroy, but rather to demonstrate that they deserved recognition as equals rather than subjugation as primitives. The human commander offered to release captured alien personnel and repair their ships in exchange for genuine diplomatic negotiations, based on mutual respect rather than the condescending superiority that had characterized their initial meetings. Dr. Amy Rodriguez presented evidence that human adaptability could benefit galactic civilization by introducing new perspectives and solutions to problems that alien species had been unable to solve despite their advanced technology. Human unpredictability was not a weakness, but rather a strength that could help break the intellectual stagnation that seemed to affect older civilizations who had become too dependent on established procedures. The Human Intelligence Network revealed its true scope, as Janet Miller demonstrated that her people had been monitoring galactic communications since before developing faster-than-light travel while building detailed profiles of every major alien species and their technological capabilities. Humans had entered galactic space with complete knowledge of what they would face and carefully prepared strategies for dealing with each potential scenario. Kate Sullivan explained human tactical doctrine to her alien counterparts, emphasizing that human military thinking focused on achieving objectives rather than following proper procedures. Human commanders were trained to adapt quickly to changing circumstances and exploit enemy weaknesses, regardless of whether their methods followed conventional warfare principles or appeared primitive to observers who expected sophisticated approaches. The aliens discovered that human technology appeared simple because it was designed to function under adverse conditions without requiring constant maintenance or perfect operating environments. Human engineers prioritized reliability over elegance, while developing systems that could be repaired by field personnel using basic materials rather than requiring specialized facilities and exotic components that might not be available during extended operations. Whisper of Ancient Wines spoke from the alien monitoring station, where the elder elven seer had been observing events with growing recognition that humanity represented something unprecedented in galactic history. The ancient elf warned her younger colleagues that humans were not just another primitive species stumbling toward civilization, but rather a completely different type of intelligence that could not be understood through traditional frameworks. Admiral Stella Green coordinated human fleet operations while maintaining defensive positions around the alien station, though making it clear that her forces were prepared to withdraw peacefully if genuine negotiations could begin. The human Admiral commanded vessels that incorporated technology developed through decades of studying alien communications, while adding innovations that alien scientists had never considered because they contradicted established theoretical principles. Major Rachel Torres reported from captured alien vessels, where her teams had discovered that most alien military systems were operated by artificial intelligence programs that followed predictable algorithms rather than human crews making real-time decisions based on changing circumstances. The aliens had become so dependent on automated solutions that they had lost the ability to think creatively under pressure. Dr. Nina Clark analyzed alien computer systems, finding that their advanced capabilities came with corresponding vulnerabilities, as complex programs required more processing power and created more opportunities for interference. Human virus attacks succeeded because they used simple destructive routines that alien security systems were not designed to recognize as threats, since they lacked the sophistication that advanced cyber warfare was expected to demonstrate. The captured aliens began to realize that their encounter with humanity would force fundamental changes in how galactic civilization understood intelligence and technological development, while humans demonstrated that there were many paths to advancement rather than the single evolutionary track that established species had assumed was universal. President Helen Wright arrived at the alien monitoring station aboard a massive diplomatic vessel that demonstrated the true scope of human spacefaring capabilities while carrying representatives from every major Earth government and colony world. The human leader had traveled through space that was now secured by combined human and alien forces, working together under temporary ceasefire agreements that both sides hoped would evolve into something more permanent and mutually beneficial. Commander Sophie Davis led the diplomatic corps that had been studying galactic law and custom for years while preparing detailed proposals for human integration into galactic civilization as equal partners rather than subordinate clients. The human diplomats carried treaties and trade agreements that offered alien species access to human innovations in exchange for technological knowledge and cultural exchange programs that would benefit all participants. Zarathiel Moonwhisper met with human representatives in the same chamber where she had previously delivered ultimatums, while struggling to adapt to circumstances that challenged everything she believed about proper relationships between advanced and primitive species. The Elven Admiral had been forced to confront the reality that human primitive appearance concealed capabilities that exceeded Elven achievements in several important areas. The negotiations revealed that human tactical flexibility had impressed alien military observers who recognized that their own forces had become predictable through over-reliance on standard procedures and automated systems. Starlight Dawnbreaker emerged as a progressive Elven leader who advocated for incorporating human innovation into Elven military doctrine while learning from human approaches to problem-solving under adverse conditions. Crystal Song of Depths participated in technical exchanges where Zephyrian scientists discovered that human engineering principles could be combined with alien theoretical knowledge to create hybrid technologies that surpassed what either species could achieve independently. The crystalline being began to understand that human adaptability was not evidence of inferior development, but rather represented a fundamentally different approach to understanding the universe. Moonbeam. Silverveil requested assignment to human liaison duties while beginning extensive study of human tactical doctrine and command philosophy under Kate Sullivan's guidance. The young Elven officer had recognized that her people needed to learn new ways of thinking if they hoped to remain relevant in a galaxy where human unpredictability was changing all the established rules about technological and military superiority. Dr. Amy Rodriguez established cultural exchange programs that allowed human and alien scholars to study each other's civilizations while identifying areas where cooperation could benefit both sides. The human xenobiologist discovered that alien societies had solved social and environmental problems that still challenged human civilization, while humans had developed psychological resilience and adaptability that could help alien species overcome their own limitations. Lisa Martinez accepted appointment as the first human representative to the Galactic Council while working with President Wright to establish formal diplomatic relations between humanity and the various alien nations. The human commander, who had been dismissed as a primitive barbarian, now found herself negotiating agreements that would reshape galactic politics for generations to come. The human fleet demonstrated new technologies that combined alien theoretical knowledge with human practical engineering, while alien scientists learned to appreciate the value of robust systems that could function reliably under conditions that would disable more sophisticated alternatives. Joint research projects began developing hybrid vessels that incorporated the best features of both human and alien design philosophies. Commander Janet Miller revealed the full extent of human intelligence operations while offering to share information, gathering techniques with alien security services in exchange for access to galactic communication networks and political intelligence that would help humanity navigate the complex relationships between different species and factions within the Galactic Council structure. Trade agreements established human colony worlds as sources of raw materials and manufactured goods, while alien planets provided advanced technology and scientific knowledge that would accelerate human development by centuries. The economic relationships created mutual dependencies that gave both sides powerful incentives to maintain peaceful cooperation rather than returning to the confrontational attitudes that had nearly led to armed conflict. Military cooperation exercises allowed human and alien forces to learn from each other while developing joint operational capabilities that could respond to external threats more effectively than either side could manage independently. Human. Tactical innovation combined with alien technological capabilities created military formations that were both more flexible and more powerful than traditional alien forces. Whisper of Ancient Wines provided historical perspective on galactic civilization, while helping younger species understand how human arrival was forcing necessary changes in established patterns that had become stagnant through excessive reliance on traditional approaches. The elder Elven seer recognized that humanity represented evolutionary pressure that would ultimately strengthen galactic civilization by preventing intellectual stagnation. The monitoring station became a joint human-alien facility where researchers from multiple species worked together on projects that none could have accomplished alone, while cultural exchange programs allowed individuals from different worlds to learn about alternative approaches to science, philosophy, and social organization that expanded everyone's understanding of what was possible. Dr. Maria Santos led joint research teams that were developing new theoretical frameworks for understanding physics and engineering, while combining human practical experience with alien academic knowledge to create innovations that neither side had previously imagined. The human physicist found that alien colleagues were eager to learn about human methods once they overcame their initial prejudices about primitive technology. Admiral Stella Green coordinated fleet operations that protected trade routes and research facilities while demonstrating that human and alien forces could work together effectively when they shared common objectives and mutual respect. The combined fleets proved more capable than the sum of their parts as human tactical flexibility enhanced alien technological advantages. The final diplomatic ceremony established humanity as a full member of the Galactic Council with voting rights and territorial recognition while creating new precedents for how technologically diverse species could cooperate as equals rather than existing in rigid hierarchies based on assumed superiority. President Wright signed agreements that opened the galaxy to human exploration and colonization, while ensuring that human innovations would be shared with alien partners who had proven willing to abandon their prejudices about primitive species. The story concluded with former enemies working together on joint projects that would have been impossible before humans forced galactic civilization to confront its own limitations, while proving that strength came not from technological advancement alone, but from the ability to adapt and innovate when faced with unexpected challenges that required new solutions.